Welcome to another episode of our personal empowerment audio program, Finding Yourself in Paradise. Hi, I'm Michael Benner.
And I'm Steve Snyder, and our program this week is going to be about enchantment, about awe and wonder and the wow that life has to offer. One of the experiences that just came to my mind was the love at first sight experience. I've had two of those in the last decade. A little over 10 years ago, actually, the first time I ever met my wife, about 5 minutes after we actually met, I turned around and stood in front of her and looked right into her eyes, and it was the most enchanting moment of my life. It was like I knew this was the one. It was an amazing experience. And then together with her, about 5 years later, we explored properties all over the island of Maui looking for our new home to be, and we were introduced to this amazing piece of land, Mama Alave, we call it, and we call it because the Hawaiians have always called it. And when we parted the bushes and opened up and saw the view of the ocean with the waves crashing on the volcanic rocks for the very first time, our jaws dropped, and that was quite enchanting.
I think that's one of the things that parents love most about having children, and watching babies. It's like one kid's not enough because you want that experience again of watching babies discover things as simple as red. Give a baby a red ribbon and it freaks out. It's like it doesn't think about the ribbon. It's just the experience of red that causes the baby to touch and rub the ribbon on its body and put it in its mouth to see how red tastes. And if life is going to be wonderful, filled with wonder, then we have to deliberately, it seems to me, wonder. And as we get older, we stop wondering. That's a hazard to think that we know it all.
Yeah, and the reason we stop wondering, it's not a conscious choice. I'm going to stop wondering now. It's we start doing so many other things. And we get so busy in our lives that wonder, which would be there if there was a blank moment, there is no blank moment. You have to make blank moments. You have to make room for wonder. It's there. You don't have to try to wonder. What you need to do is stop doing all the stuff that's stopping you from wondering, because when there's time, when you create in your life a space for just being, and not doing, but just being, then the natural experience that comes up is a sense of real awe, of real wonder, of real enchantment.
Those are such wonderful words. Wonderful, wonder, awe, enchantment. One of the problems we have, in addition to what you just said, because I think being busy is part of turning off in a way, and I already know this, and I've already seen that, and I've looked at flowers before. I don't have to carefully observe the flower, and then we miss so much. I think in addition to just the accelerated pace at which we live our lives is the way in which we're dazzled by technology and the implication that we know things, right? So if I have all the answers, or if science and technology is going to give me all the answers, then I'm tempted to stop asking the kinds of questions that would lead to wonder, awe, and enchantment.
That's so powerful. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Google, but the truth is there's more I don't know than they do know, and you're always going to be able to find things to wonder about if you let your mind stretch in that way. See, that's the thing. I blame the school system so much for teaching conformity instead of creativity. I mean, it's not encouraged in youth in school to go their own way and make up their own stuff and invent and stretch the boundaries of their imagination. Imagination is the key, of course, to the sense of enchantment and wonder. Logic is a magnificent thing, but it's not really wonderful. I mean, it's not really full of awe and wonder. Logic is just basically progressing in a direction that you know you're going. But when you leave room for creativity, all of a sudden you may be somewhere you had no idea you're going to get. And that's what's so wonderful. That's what's so enchanting. Being able to, live in the world with technology and to know that there are a lot of answers to a lot of questions, but they'll never be the answers to the biggest questions, because if we learn those, there'll be even bigger ones.
One of the key principles in critical thinking is, and it's remarkable to me how rarely, if ever, this is discussed, is that just because you have a right answer doesn't mean it's the best right answer.
You mean there can be more than one right answer? You mean we can break the basic law of school? There's only one right answer to any problem, and otherwise you get it wrong?
Yeah. This is school teaching us to think inside the box.
Yeah.
And not draw outside the lines and stand in line and toe the line. School really tends to shut down the enchantment that children naturally bring into the world.
The idea of a second right answer and a third right answer and an even better answer than the great answer that's always worked before. Even if you have an answer to a problem, a solution that's always worked for you, the idea of maybe there could be one better than that causes you to wonder. I wonder if that's true or not.
I wonder if this is the best way to make a car move, to burn oil. Well, let's see. That leads to war and global warming, and the prices keep going up, and maybe there's a better way to run a car. No, drill, baby, drill. We need to be more creative in this area. I'll tell you the first place I heard this, or really had my brain open to it, was listening as a young person to Bucky Fuller, the now late, great Buckminster Fuller. And he was talking about a scenario like the Titanic sinking. And he said, well, just imagine that you missed the lifeboat and you've got a life preserver, but you're out in the frigid ocean in the North Atlantic and icebergs all around, and a grand piano floats by. And you climb up on the grand piano, and it saves your life. Does that mean that, therefore, we design all future lifeboats in the shape of grand pianos? And that's that hit me so hard as a kid. And that's exactly what we tend to do today is, well, it works, so, what's the problem? If there are side effects or negative consequences, we've got a problem. And I learned in school that if I solve a problem, it's not a problem anymore.
You know what a cool example of that is? I mean, I'm not big on giving commercials here, but you know that new vacuum cleaner, that Dyson vacuum cleaner that has the roller ball?
Yes.
I mean, what a cool concept. Instead of just being able to back and forth, now you can go in any direction. That's just a whole new paradigm. That to me is what somebody had to sit down. This guy had to sit down and wonder, like, is there a better way to do something that works? If it ain't broke, break it, is a kind of interesting philosophy, So what we're saying is, and even in your everyday things, the things you do every day at work or at home with your kids, with your family, take a moment and wonder, could I do this differently? I did a seminar just a couple of days ago. I was in Dallas, Texas, and did a seminar. And I asked a question. I told them basically some techniques for creating what they want. The 4 Ps. Imagine what you do want: positive, present tense, practice, passion, imaginative, mental rehearsal stuff. And I gave them some examples. And I said, now, besides the examples that I've just given you, what else do you want to be great at? And silence. Silence. It's like people are so busy, they never even stop to wonder, what else could I be great at? What else do I want to really master? And that question is so incredibly powerful, because what it gives you is amazing insight into what your gifts, talents, and abilities are, because the only answers that your mind would come up with in terms of what do I want to be great at are things you could be great at. And so all of a sudden, just wondering about how could I be better at, or what would I like to be better at, that kind of wondering makes growth and fulfillment just come into fruition.
Here's another twist on this. In the, it must have been late 1970s, early to mid-1980s, when Jerry Brown, the son of the former California governor, Pat Brown, he's now the Attorney General, but he was the governor back then. He created an office called OAT, the Office of Appropriate Technology. And, the right wing gave him so much grief for this. But solving problems that on the surface don't seem to need solving by saying, high technology is great, but there's also low technology and the whole range in between. What is appropriate? And in our problem solving, if we bring our imagination in, that's what paradise thinking is. If we pull always upon, is there a better way to solve this problem that's already been solved? A more elegant way. Bucky Fuller would say a more natural way. How would nature solve this problem? How is nature solving this problem? She's always using trial and error to find an ever better and more appropriate way to solve problems. This is a balance point that is often missing in a consumer society of more.
Yeah, and we won't evolve if we stay in a stress mode and continue to operate on autopilot. We don't awaken. We don't grow if we just keep doing what we did last time. Even if what we're doing works, even if what we're doing works well, that's all the more reason to think that maybe it could be even better. All the more reason to wonder about everything, to not accept anything as face value, not to accept any solution as the best possible solution, to always wonder, could it be done differently, could it be done better, and to always wonder, is there a more elegant way, is there a more exciting way, is there a way that'll help more people than the way that I'm doing it now? There's always things to wonder about, and you'll do it. You'll do it if you just stop for a moment, take one slow, conscious, deep breath, and have as the intention, I want to move into a state of wonder. I want to move into a state of focused passion.
Yeah, sure. It's like I want to do more than just get by. I want to live a life of significance, right? Instead of fighting and struggling against life, as so many of us have been taught to do, we can flow with life. We can bring into our fascination with high technology. And again, I'm no Luddite. I love high technology stuff. It has negative consequences, but again, I think we can do better. But this idea of appropriate technology and is there a better way to solve a problem that we've already solved requires us to look at even what we've been told about imagination being no big deal. It's baffling to me how popular the idea is that, oh, well, of course, that's just your imagination.
Of course, Einstein said imagination is more powerful than knowledge.
One of the most knowledgeable people you know is saying, what I know is nothing. It's my ability to dream. Well, that's not in school. You get in, there are exceptions, of course. There's some great teachers, women and men, that teach the children how to dream. But my experience certainly was getting in trouble for dreaming because I was, had an eraser thrown at me or hit by a ruler or something because I was not paying attention. But good teachers learn to help children dream about the lesson at hand. If instead of being dissuaded from daydreaming, we were encouraged to dream about the lesson that we're studying now and use our imagination in that way, and what else could be done, that's integrating enchantment, wonder, awe, imagination into our passion for science and technology. I think it's an important concept.
It certainly is. And, spending much of my life working with school teachers and attempting to help them be better up front, I came down with the concept that it really are two things that teachers need to do. Two things. They need to, A, be interested, and they need to be surprising. Because if they're predictable, then kids are going to space out and going to wander away. They got to do something to break attention spans and create new attention spans and be intriguing, be interesting, be something that people are enchanted to watch and to listen to. And it's not the content. It's not about the content. It doesn't matter what you're saying. It's doing it and delivering it in a way that's interesting and exciting. Now, you can't make people interested, but if you're not expressing being really interested, then it's really unlikely that's going to catch fire in anybody else. And again, if you're not surprising, if you're not doing something that's a little like, wait a minute, I'm going to keep watching you because you're going to do something weird anytime now. You're going to do something different anytime. If you're not doing something different, so the kids are keeping on the edge of their seats waiting for something else, then their body language will affect. They'll lean back, they'll space out instead of leaning in and spacing in.
Yeah, because the problems are already solved. Here's another angle on this. Not only do we discount imagination, I think there is a bias in favor of negative thinking that says the best way to solve a problem is to focus on the problem. And if you dream up solutions, well, that's airy-fairy. That's blue sky. That's just your imagination. Don't be dreaming up solutions, because then you got to figure out how to get there. Let's just focus on the problem. We'll fixate, we'll obsess on the problem, and then somehow a solution is going to arrive. How could we have gotten this far in problem solving and not be teaching our children as parents, as teachers, as peers, as older brothers and sisters, whatever? The power of the dream, the power of imagination, and the beauty and the wisdom in always wondering. Well, another way to look at this is simply paying attention to what we're not paying attention to. For example, I wonder how many of our listeners right now could visualize or describe the back of a nickel. I bet you know what's on the front of a nickel. What's on the back of a nickel?
Jefferson's home in Monticello?
I'm not sure.
I am.
I haven't looked at the back of a nickel in a long, long time.
Of course, there used to be a buffalo nickel that had an Indian head on the front and a buffalo on the back, but
I bet you paid attention as a kid.
oh yeah, my dad was a coin collector, and I did a little bit of that as a kid too.
What's it say just before number 2 on that yellow pencil? When was the last time you read what it said on a pencil?
Is it a word? Is it like
Depends on who made it.
I guess whose pencil it is. Yeah, Ticonderoga.
We're not paying attention. And you know my story of the brownie. I'm not going to repeat that. But so much of our lives we live on autopilot, not really paying attention, not really being awake. And it's not logic or reasoning or rational deductive thought that's going to wake us up so much as dreaming. Now, isn't that interesting? To wake up, you got to dream.
Because if you don't dream, if you're just working on autopilot, then you're not really awake. It is a contradiction, but to wake up, you have to dream. To wake up, you have to wonder about how could it be different than it is, because otherwise, if you're just living in what is, that's not awake. That's like sleepwalking through life. If life is going to be exactly what it was last time, and here's the same problem, so here's the same solution, then that's not really awake. What we're talking about is bring enchantment. Don't wait for something to be enchanting. There will be things that come into your life, pop into your life that are enchanting, that are awe-inspiring, that are wonderful. You go watch a whale breach out of the water. That's awesome. Anytime you ever, but you don't have to wait for something out there to happen to be in a state of awe or wonder. You can bring that state, and that's really what we're talking about here. Bring focused passion. Bring the state of, I wonder how this could be better. I wonder how this could be funner. I wonder how this could be more exciting. I wonder how I could fall in love even deeper. That's one of my favorites. I wonder how I can get even closer and even deeper with my beautiful and wonderful wife.
So if we asked a group of people to think of something wonderful, don't you think most of them would focus on what they already know rather than what they don't know? And what we're saying is there's wonder in all of those places. Not only what you know is still full of wonder. Not only is what you already know full of wonder, but look at the wonder there is and how much more there is to know. So if you want life to be wonderful and bring enchantment into this high-tech world, take a look at what you don't know and embrace it and love what you don't know. I mean, get crazy about being confused and looking for the mystery in things. That, I think we need balance here, integration and synthesis.
There's a television show that I love called Lost, and the best part of that show is wondering what's going to happen. How are they going to explain all these amazing phenomena? Yeah, what's happened already in our lives is often wonderful and often not, but certainly if we're thinking about what's something wonderful, we can remember that beautiful day that certain wonderful things happened. But real wonder, what we're talking about, real the state of enchantment, the state of awe and wonder, we're talking about pretending something into the future, inventing something, opening up your mind and heart to new ideas and different ways of looking at things, because as wonderful as what is, it couldn't possibly be as wonderful as what you could imagine. Because you could imagine as good as it is now, plus some. You can always imagine the best you can imagine now, and then, just like we say, you always have choices, and you always have more choices than you first imagined you have. Imagine the best you can imagine, and then embellish. Your imagination can make anything you can imagine even better next time, and even better next time.
Another real important concept here, I think, is going from self-interest to the greater good of all concerned. I don't even know who gets credit for the phrase, because sometimes it sounds spiritual, sometimes it sounds like repackaged socialism. I think it's just human nature to evolve to a point where you realize that you are not separated from others and that it is in your interest, it's a little confusing to say at first, that there is a self-interest in caring about other people. Because there is no separation, and what benefits them can benefit you and vice versa. So to work for the greater good of all concerned is to open up your life. There is a self-interest in what can I do for you, even though most of us live our lives, especially in business, with what's in it for me. A fellow who contacted me recently for life coaching was asking whether I thought he should go to a particular trade show or convention. And he said, it costs this much money, and it's just going to be a bunch of people passing out their business cards, and I don't really know if it's worth it. And so I said to him, well, I can only help you so much in deciding the value and whether you want to spend the money on this and whether you see it as an investment rather than a cost. But I'll tell you one thing. While everybody else is passing out business cards and trying to get business that way by looking at what can I get from this, why don't you go with the attitude of what you can give? And you don't give your business card to anybody unless they ask and even insist. You just keep them in your pocket. Your job is to collect other people's business cards, right? And then, when the event is over, you go home and send them a short little note or a letter that says it was really nice to meet you. I think that's got a whole lot more impact because, and this is primary to the concept of networking in business, but it's still the minority of women and men that know to do this. It's about what can I do for you? That is really smart business. Wondering, what can I do for you? How can I help? Maybe there is some self-interest in, well, you and I did a show a few months ago called Giving to Give rather than Giving to Get. It's not even enough just to give. If you want real wonder and awe in your life, you've got to give, it seems to me, without any thought of what you're going to get in return. Even though you will get something back. You'll get trust, you'll get loyalty, you'll get respect. Who doing sales hasn't encountered somebody that's resistant because they have a very warm, wonderful relationship with somebody else in the same business? And they admit to you, yeah, it's a good quality product or service you got here, and actually that's a very good price, but I really like the person I'm already dealing with, right? That's give to give. That's the self-interest, it seems to me, in being of service to other people and leading with the idea. Again, what are we talking about today? Using imagination to bring enchantment, wonder, and awe into our lives. Part of that, I think, is going beyond simple self-interest to the self-interest in being of service to the greater good and imagining how I can live a life of significance and really make a difference in the world.
I mean, just start with this basic idea. Think about your best friend, whoever pops into your mind when you think about your best friend. Now think about how you could be a better friend over the next several years and how that friendship could blossom, say, 5 years from now. Just think about that. What could happen if you became an even better friend than you've been? If you wondered about how can I be a better friend to this person? What kind of relationship could you have 5 years from now? That's that kind of wondering, that kind of like imagination, it's stretching the limits of this great friendship you already have and making it even better in your mind. That's a very powerful technique for getting the mind into this fascination state. Because once we start to see how good it feels to stretch our imagination in any area, the mind will enjoy that experience so much that it'll just long for the repeat experience of stretching the imagination in other areas too. Think of something that's easy, like somebody you really are close friends with right now, and how could that relationship be even better by you contributing even more than you've been contributing?
Seems to me we also have to focus at some point on just the basic feel-good of wondering. That to be enchanted, this is a form of not knowing something and not understanding that feels good. What a crazy idea. I always thought it was a bad thing not to know or to wonder. Well, then where does wonderful come from? You used the word awe a few minutes ago. And to be awesome or to be awestruck in almost an archaic way used to mean fear, as in, religious people will sometimes talk about themselves as being God-fearing, as if they're afraid of their source, right? That doesn't make sense. It's a confusion around what awe really means, which is not having all the answers, to wonder what is the nature of this relationship. Maybe in our ultimate existential questions about existence and who we are and why we're here, questions we all ask as children and hopefully as adults, but I'm afraid a lot of adults stop asking those questions. Instead of being afraid not to have the answer, look at awe as the mystery, the wonder. These are the people, whether they're scientists or poets or doctors or teachers or truck drivers or your local neighborhood philosopher, whoever they happen to be. These are the people that really add to our lives. And I think we can awaken that in everybody. The idea that what you don't know could really be a wonderful thing to contemplate.
And if you spend all of your time needing to find the solutions to everything, needing the answers, needing to like make sure there's no loose ends kind of thing, you lose the sense of awe and wonder. It's wonderful to wonder about those things that you can't know the answer to. Like, I've spent a lot of time in my life, a big science fiction fan, thinking about two inventions that would change the world. Faster than light drive, if we could take a spaceship and go faster than the speed of light, what that would do. And anti-gravity. What that would do, for example, to transportation, if you could just, like, without gravity, move anything from anywhere to anywhere free, And think, like, what would society be like if we could beam me up Scotty, or if we could actually move food into everybody's hands without any cost? What would the world be like if it was like that? I can't know the answer to that. I won't experience that in my life. I won't find a solution, but that's not what it's about. It's the joy that comes from it. See, to me, this is the most important thing. If you want life to be more enjoyable, then you have to do that. You can't wait for that to happen. You can make life more enjoyable by doing things you enjoy. And if you enjoy wondering, if you enjoy being in that state of awe, wonder, of enchantment, then bring it. Bring it to your life. Pick the next thing you look at and look at it different. I'm looking at Michael's guitar case. It's open. There's no guitar in it at the moment, and it's got this really lush green, deep velvet look. And I'm just staring at this thing right now and seeing it in an entirely new way that I've ever seen it before. And almost tasting the greenness of it, You can do that. You can bring enchantment. You can bring awe and wonder to any experience. And you don't have to, like, take out your BlackBerry calendar and schedule it in. You could do this in a second or two with the intention of awakening to your five senses and your thoughts and feelings and experiencing the universe as being real special. Just right now, just for this moment, real special.
Some of this is a battle between the heart and the mind. Because the mind wants to have the answers, and the heart wants to feel the joy and the experience of wondering about the things that we don't yet have answers for. So let me share with you what just happened when you talked about faster than light drive. My mind jumped in right away and said, no, you can't do that. You can't do that. Because if you went faster than light, you'd arrive before you left.
Right, time travel.
And you got these other problems, Benner, with, you got to tell Snyder to stop dreaming these dreams, because the faster you go, then the greater the mass becomes, and that takes more energy to drive it, and you'll never get in. Okay, mind, that's a very valuable process, and I'm glad you're there. But hold on, just relax, sit over to the side here, and go back to what Steve is saying about I wonder, what if? And what if we could beam me up Scotty? And what about the stuff that's right in front of our face? We do not know how the pyramids were made 4,000 years ago. When they built the Aswan Dam in the 50s or 60s, they had to move some very small little pyramids and other sculptures and things, and they brought in the biggest machines in the world, and they had a horrible time relocating these tiny little, relatively speaking, stone monuments. But the pyramids themselves, we can put men on the moon, and yet we don't know how they piled up these rocks in Giza. How did they do that? And why aren't we asking ourselves, maybe if we could figure that out, we could learn something that we could apply today? But it's just like old and dusty and, oh yeah, isn't that quaint, the pyramids, yeah, some other culture, some other time. So what does it say about us that we've got these 4,000-year-old pyramids, and some say there's evidence that they're even older than that. We have no idea how they were made, how they could have been made. We couldn't do it now, even with our science and technology, and yet we're not asking the question. We're not dedicating ourselves to these kinds of challenges because we think it doesn't matter. It's just a pile of rocks. Imagination, creativity in schools. This is really important. And if the schools aren't going to do it because for whatever reason they can't or they won't, then we have to do it as parents and peers, teachers, friends, whatever. Awaken imagination. This is a really good time in society to do it now. I'm feeling a fresh, nonpartisan. Everybody seems to be on board with a page is turned, there's something new in the land, it's a good time to begin to re-examine, the way we've always done things, and to grow and look at new approaches rather than always looking back and doing the same thing in the same way.
And one new way of looking at things is through the process of an audio journey. So
there you go.
Let's do that. Let's do an audio journey into the land of enchantment, the land of awe and wonder. And remember, it's really not about looking to find it in the world. It's about bringing it. It's just about having it and bringing it to whatever experience of the world that you have. So, as always, to begin the audio journey, make sure this is a good time and place for you to be. And if it is indeed, close your eyes, take a deep breath, a really slow, conscious, I'm breathing now, deep breath, and as you release, start some paradise thinking in this place of perfect peace. Let muscle tension release, anxiety abate, confusion, all the confusion, it just dissipates, and you feel relaxed and safe and clear. And you're only one place, right now, right here.
For life to be wonderful, we must fill it with wonder. We must balance the tendency of the mind to want to know it all with the passion of the heart that is never really fulfilled or satisfied with what we know. It's as if we were made with a longing inside, an inherent desire to always know more, like a fractal unfolding to infinity, going deeper, ever deeper, looking not only at problems that need to be solved, but at circumstances and situations and events that seem to already be solved, and ask ourselves, could we do this better?
How can we do this better? Why might we do this better? And when will I take the time to wonder? Think about that. When? When will you take the time to wonder? Take the time to stop with that one deep breath and see something in a new way. To look at that friend, or to look at that job, or to look at that house, or to look at that pet in a different way, in a new way, in a wondering, wonderful way. Bring it. Create the state of focused passion with paradise thinking, and know that in this state you can bring to every endeavor, every experience, everything in your life a new sense of awe and wonder, a new sense of seeing things through fresh eyes, through experiencing things in a way that you've never, ever experienced them before.
Here are 6 words to help you wonder. Every journalist there is indebted to Rudyard Kipling for crystallizing this concept into these 6 words. Who, what, where, when, how, the W's on the back end here, and maybe the biggest one of all, the one that I always like to say for last, why? 6 words, 6 very powerful questions that you can ask. And they will have very different meaning depending on the context. You know these words: who, what, when, where, how, and why.
And the questions are often more important than the answers. The question begins the journey, and the journey is more significant than the destination. It doesn't often even matter if you arrive at a conclusion to the question why. It's just going down that road that opens the mind, that opens the imagination, that creates the possibility kind of thinking that is so enjoyable for the mind to experience. Give your mind an opportunity to play with possibilities. Give it an opportunity to step out of the bounds of laws of physics and reality and what was and what has to be. Give it an opportunity to expand into a universe of the maybe, of the possibly, of the even probably not. But step away from needing to find the one right answer and just enjoy the heck out of asking the question.
Question authority, even. Now, as in all things, be appropriate and be balanced. That is to say, we can be respectful of traditions and conventions and traditional authority, and still question it. Question authority in a respectful way, but question authority. And then think for yourself. Now, here's a crazy idea. Think for yourself. Think for yourself. Make up your own mind. Decide how you feel about it. Weren't taught to do that in school. Weren't taught to question authority, but rather obey. We're not taught to think for yourself because nobody really gave you information to help you find that self. After all, how can you think for yourself if you don't know who you are? And if who you are is simply all the truths and the facts and the traditional conventions that other people have told you, that's not very personal. That's not very meaningful to you, is it? That's not very reflective of your uniqueness. To think for yourself and question authority, you have to have a sense of who that self is. And it's more than your thoughts. It's even more than your feelings. It's the higher self, the real you, the true you, the self you find in paradise.
So ask yourself questions that only you could know the answer to. Like, imagine, what's one of your favorite tastes? And then ask yourself, what color is that? No one else could know the answer to that question, but by just imagining a color associated with a taste, the synesthesia of that experience opens your mind in awe and wonder. If you imagine one of your favorite smells, what would it look like if it gained physical form? Play with your mind and with your senses. Bring a sense of joy, a sense of playfulness, a sense of awe and wonder to your life. Imagine yourself in the room you're sitting in now, as if your eyes were open. In the room you're sitting in now. And look around that room. Remember it as best as you can. And notice a few objects, special objects in that room in your mind. And pick one. Any object in the room that you're sitting in, you're actually in now, or wherever it is you're sitting, any object that's around you, think about that object and take a moment and use your imagination to imagine that object in a new way. Just see it differently, or imagine it smells different, or imagine it has a different texture than it has, or do something that I haven't thought of that you think of to do. But just imagine it in a new way. And know that you can bring that sense of playful wonder and awe to anything, everything that you wish to in your life. Know that you are responsible for making your life more entertaining by entertaining yourself with the most entertaining of your senses. The most entertaining of your senses are your imaginary senses. What your imagination can do beyond what your five physical senses are capable of.
Discovery is less about seeing new things than seeing things with new eyes. It begins with the mind's eye and your ability to imagine. Yes, to take the time, to dedicate the time, to confront the appearance that this is a waste of time to sit and daydream. Use a different word if you feel that way. Call it reflection, introspection, contemplation. Heck, call it problem solving. You can solve problems that most people don't even know exist. If you're willing to form this attitude of wondering, of dreaming, of honoring the imagination, of respecting that each of us is born with a longing to always want to know more. This is not a static universe. The one thing that we can rely on is change. Let's make it change for the better. Put your attention on positive, progressive change, on development and unfoldment. Certainly, there is reality to life running out of steam. A physicist will be happy to tell you about entropy and how everything moves from order to chaos, but there are other principles of consciousness where we can bring order out of chaos, where we can create new things, where we can see over the horizon and solve problems that most people don't even know exist, and then find even better solutions to problems that have already been solved, and go beyond self-interest to your interest in the greatest good of all concerned, for that makes each of us better. Trust not only the mind, but the heart. Go to the feel-good of wonder. Why was that installed? Romance and sexuality feels good because life found that this was a way for it to procreate, because it's in life's interest for us to multiply, to expand, to be more. Well, in the same way, to feel good about dreaming, to honor the warm, fuzzy presence of imagination, of wondering. This is enchantment. And it certainly doesn't replace knowledge. It's a supplement to a bigger way of understanding not only the world around you, but understanding yourself as well.
And so regardless of your circumstances, no matter how mundane your life may seem, you can bring enchantment into every single day of your life. It takes consciousness, it takes mindfulness, it takes the awareness that you want to bring it. And with that awareness, you can create a process in a moment, in an instant, where you can see things through new eyes, smell things through new noses, and hear things through new ears. You can bring a new you to any moment of your life and make that moment more enchanting. So with the fact that enchantment causes the mind to feel happier and more joyful and therefore produces endorphins and positive chemicals which make you even happier, it's a wonderful process to get into. It's a uplifting spiral of emotional joy by unleashing your imagination and going where you have never gone before. Allow your mind the freedom to dream, and it will change even the most mundane of daily tasks into something that just is much, much more fun to explore.
Consider that somewhere in your life, something wonderful is about to happen. Wouldn't it be a shame if you missed it, if you were too busy, if you overlooked it? Expect wonder. Install wonder. Enchantment, dreams, imagination into your life deliberately and consciously. Consider even now that in just a few moments, when we ask you to open your eyes, wide awake and alert, back in the room in which you're sitting, you will see the very room around you that you know so well, and the objects, the furniture and such in it that you've lived with for so long, with entirely new eyes. And you may not even be able to describe the difference, but there's something new about it because you brought that expectation with you. You initiated wonder and enchantment in your life.
In a few moments when you open your eyes, the first thing that captures your attention, stop and pay attention to it in a new way. bring new eyes, bring a new experience to that first thing that captures your mind. And now, as it feels comfortable for you, take a deep breath and bring yourself back to wide awake.
You know, Steve, if you think about it, nobody really likes a know-it-all. On one hand, we honor that. We respect that. We like smart people, knowledgeable people. We're dependent upon them. But at the same time, there's this other side of things that, oh, this person is a know-it-all. They think they know it all. So I think that speaks to some part of us that realizes that we're better off if we do wonder, if we balance what we know with all there is that's yet to be known, if, as you said earlier, focus not only on the destination, but the journey. Maybe that's much more important than arriving. I mean, we need a destination in order to have a journey, but it's the process of understanding that is much more rewarding than walking around as if you're all filled up with knowledge.
Yeah, sometimes, I mean, certainly the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, but sometimes you miss some of the exciting detours. So it's okay to wonder and see things in different ways. You don't have to go directly straight toward exactly what you want all the time. The journey can be a lot of the fun. What we're talking about here is bringing wonder, bringing focused passion into your life. All it takes is an awareness, a consciousness, a mindfulness that this is exactly what I want to do. I want to make my life more interesting and more exciting. I want to wonder.
And I'm wondering right now what your friends and your family members are going to think and feel when you send one of these programs to them. Exactly the right program, maybe this very program to somebody who could benefit from being encouraged along these lines. Somebody who feels sort of stuck and doesn't know what to do. Forward this program on enchantment, on wonder, on imagination. Use our Send One to a Friend gadget at focusedpassion.com to share what you care about with the people that you love. Send them what they need most. And I think you'll find that the experience of having access to these programs is multiplied by the act of sharing them with other people. In fact, I think that's the most important thing that you can do now that you've discovered focusedpassion.com. And share the Ageless Wisdom webinars as well. Got the same gadget there. Send one to a friend. And your friends then will discover focusedpassion.com. Solutions to real-world problems and a means of healing your heart as well. We want to thank you for listening. As always, be gentle, love life, and take care of each other. For Steve Snyder, this is Michael Benner. Aloha.